Hi everyone, I'm Ryan Schambers, also known as DeagleBeagle. So I got back from the Fremont PC in California um, on the 5th, and I got top 8 with a different team. I don't really want to share all of it because it has certain UV spreads, but I know I'm not going to use Mandibuzz again, so I might as well share what sets I recommend on it. Okay, so Mandibuzz, I tried out a lot of different items on it. I tried out Walkenberry, I tried out a Guava Berry, and a lot of different items, and I just felt like Citrus Berry was the best because it activated almost every single game. And if you use Walkenberry, they may not have Tapu Koko or some electric Pokemon, and you may not use that berry at all. So Citrus Berry seemed ideal because a Guava Berry wasn't activating enough for me. It was activating probably most battles, but if it only activates maybe 60% of the time, it's not worth it, especially when the fact is it activates when you're practically dead, so they can finish off Mandibuzz easier. But if they, let's say they Eruption, like I faced a Torkoal Lilligant team on Showdown, and he Eruption, and it did barely more than half, and I had the Citrus Berry. If I had a Guava Berry, I wouldn't have been able to survive another Eruption. So Citrus Berry I felt was the best item, at least for that tournament, because it's better safe than sorry, and I can always use a Guave later in a future tournament. But here's the way I recommend on using Mandibuzz, but honestly, it depends on your team. So on almost all teams though, I'd use Roost, I'd use Taunt, I'd use Tailwind. The fourth move is usually a dark move, and it's either Snarl or Foul Play. This one uses Snarl. I actually use Snarl at the Premier Challenge because it lowers their special attack for both opponents, and the net damage is actually about the same as Foul Play, I was finding, unless they have really high attack or something like that. Or maybe they're weak to Dark and you can hit them a little bit harder for a single target move. But Snarl also is good in case they protected with that particular Pokemon. The main issue I actually had with Snarl was it missing. And then another issue was if they have competitive like a Bravery or a Melodic, then it kind of deters you from just snarling away, especially when you can't Foul Play right after. But here's why I recommend each move. So Tailwind, that's kind of obvious. Mandibuzz, that's pretty much Mandibuzz's niche. It's a bulky Tailwinder, so it almost always gets up Tailwind, even if they gang up on it. And you can have a certain ally to help you out. Like I was using Hariyama with Fake Out. That wouldn't always work. I ran into problems with Feeny stopping the Flame Orb or Psychic Terrain from Lele. So I ended up using a fast Mimikyu. There's other ways to support Mandibuzz teams, but I was actually using Hard Tailwind, and it's a revolutionary idea that I came up with where basically I have consistent Tailwind all game long, but I actually found it wasn't consistent because I could set up Tailwind from the lead and even in the back, but I rather get hits off now that I think about it. All these speed racing teams, I don't think it's really worth it. Trick Room lasts one turn longer than Tailwind, so perhaps it could be worth it. But Tailwind was just not working for me. So I think it's also because the Pokemon in Tailwind, they have to have more speed EVs. Like, you know, with pretty much all your Pokemon, you have to have medium or faster speed. But with Trick Room teams, you can use more bulk. So I feel like Trick Room teams, like Gavin Michaels' team, is a little bit better competitively, but that's going off on a tangent. Let me explain this a little bit more. So you set up Tailwind, and now your whole team is really fast, unless they set up Trick Room, but that's what Taunt's for. So hopefully they don't stop you from taunting them somehow, but I did have Trick Room Mimikyu to reverse the Trick Room if I needed to, but I didn't always pick it. But I could pick it if I wanted to. And Roost. Roost is really good if they're trying to stall out Tailwind. But the problem I have with Tailwind teams is that they protect when you're trying to attack. They don't protect when they think you're going to roost or something. So they just do the opposite of what you would hope they would do, and it seems like it relies too much on prediction. Like you lose a whole turn setting up Tailwind. But my idea with using Mandibuzz was you basically protect with your ally, you set up Tailwind, you let Mandibuzz take hits, and it can always roost him back later. So you're not really setting yourself back very far, but the problem with that is you don't use enough offense to really stop them from setting up sub or maybe doubling up on Mandibuzz or something like that. I mean, Mandibuzz, it can wall most things, but I had a big issue with Spexfini. That was a huge issue for me. I mean, it stopped the Hariyama from using Flame Orb. It Moonblast practically one-shots Mandibuzz even with all this special defense. So let me show you some calculations really quick. I actually did face Chemo, and he used Chemo and Mitchell, and they both used Pheromosa with the Phytimium Z, and this shows that max HP one always walls the max attack Pheromosa with the Phytimium Z. So Chemo told me that he one-shotted one in a tournament before, but that one must have used less than max HP because it always walls. So he was a little bit surprised. And I basically, by the way, use max special defense on Mandibuzz because almost all the attacks that people go for against it are special unless it's like a Z move. I mean, besides Pheromosa, there's not a lot of powerful fighting attacks or powerful physical attacks against Mandibuzz. So most of them are special. But for some reason, I didn't face a lot of Thunderbolt, Modest, Tapu Koko. I actually faced a lot of Volt Switch and other things. So I looked at it later. I didn't even do the calculations before the tournament. And Thunderbolt, this is just timid. Even just Thunderbolt can kill it 12.5% of the time. That's with Life Orb. They could be using Specs also. But let's show you the Modest one. So it one-shots the Mandibuzz that I was using about half the time. I was using very slightly different EVs. I just don't like showing my exact EVs. Okay, but the point is I would barely survive, would get Citrus Berry, and then I would either Snarl or Roost, and Roost drops your flying type. That can be good or bad. So it's usually good though, because a lot of its weaknesses are based on its flying type, like the Thunderbolts, Ice Beam, things like that. So Roost is actually good. And I remember, by the way, all the way back in 2010, I used Ho-Ah with one less speed than Groudon because you could Earthquake and Roost right after instead of roosting and having your own ally kill you with Earthquake. That made a lot more sense. So if you're using an Earthquaker with Mandibuzz, make sure it's faster, but you probably won't have an issue with that because unless you're using something really slow like a Mudsdale, which doesn't really make sense to me in Tailwind. I mean, Garchomp or Crocodile are great picks, and they're already outspeed Mandibuzz by a long shot. So I had no issues with that. Now, let me go into the other set. This is somewhat similar to what Nick Navari was using. I don't really know his EV spread, but I can guess it's somewhat similar, except he was using Leftovers. But my problem with Leftovers is that I feel like if Leftovers is a good item for Mandibuzz, you're already winning the battle by a long shot anyways. Like, you're already going to win the battle. But Citrus Berry may help you win some battles that you otherwise wouldn't have won. And let me explain why. So, if you're able to use Leftovers, it means they're not doing enough damage in general to your team for you to feel like you need a lot of recovery all of a sudden. So, Leftovers is only good if it works for at least 4 turns. So the first turn you have to take damage in order for that to count as a turn. And actually all of those 4 turns you have to take damage. So if you roost back to full HP, leftovers doesn't help at all. And Citrus Berry just makes more sense to me because it seems unlikely that Mandibuzz is going to last that long unless you're basically demolishing their team anyways, and in that case you don't really need the leftovers. So Foul Play makes it a lot more offensive than Snarl, but Snarl really supports your team. I was using Crocodile with Intimidate and Electric Seed Cocoa, and it did pretty well, but I faced a huge Marowak problem, but that's a whole nother story. Overcoat actually was very useful versus Philip Winged. He used Butterfree, and I'm so glad I had Overcoat, and then I had Tapu Koko also, so he didn't do anything. I just kept Koko in the back, and it basically was an easy win for me. He forfeited. So Overcoat stops Sleep Powder, Spore. It actually ignores Rage Powder as well. So not Follow Me. It has to be a powder-based move. And then also it's good to stop damage from Sandstorm or Hail. So that could help a lot in the long run, especially if Mandibuzz stays alive for a lot of turns. And Mandibuzz, actually my team did really well except versus Brandon. He used like a really hard counter team to me, so I actually beat him the second battle in the best of 3 in the top cut, but he just had a really good counter team and he's a good battler. So I just felt though like I didn't want to use Mandibuzz again after seeing Specs Feeney and other things. So other than that though, it did really well. Like in general, did really well versus almost everything else. But the fact is I know certain Pokemon like Specs Feeney are going to be more common, and if like anyone uses it versus me, I can't ever pick Mandibuzz. That doesn't make Mandibuzz bad though, because you have other Pokemon. But I just felt like it's hard to make a Tailwind type of team anyways. I really don't want to center too much around Tailwind, and I feel like that's what Mandibuzz does, and it doesn't have enough offense. So I felt like I needed the other slots on my team more, so I'm going to use a totally different team for San Bruno. Okay, so Foul Play is an option. If you ask Nick Navarro, he's also known as Nails OU, he'll say it's better than Snarl because it does more damage, and I had a good chat with him, but my preference is Citrus Snarl. So it really depends on the team though. If you can have a team where it does high damage to the Pokemon that don't take a lot from Snarl, then Foul Play is better, possibly. But Snarl is really good. My main issue with it is actually it misses, and I had it miss a crucial miss versus a Kartana, and it was very annoying. So I just don't know if I would really recommend Snarl. I mean, it's great when it hits, but when it doesn't hit, it's bad. But I guess you could say that for anything. So this concludes the Mandibuzz analysis. I know it's very lengthy, but there's a lot to talk about. Okay, stay tuned for the next one.